be accounted. So, wow. So this is a snapshot of a tool that I use, that I made for myself. It's essentially a BI tool that I connected to Jira API in my previous team. And it used to pull, and I gave you the snapshot of that. So that's the utilization. So utilization is how much allocated task they have divided by the capacity they have in that sprint. And you see, like, some people have less capacity, probably they were off or whatever, right? And then this is the utilization. You see somebody's at 100%, somebody's at 140% almost, which is, let me see who that was. Nitesh. Yeah, Nitesh was a senior engineer, and he was 130% utilization was fine for him, because again, these are average hours. Productivity. So, productivity for me is developer completion rate. And what a ticket is dev complete when it's QA passed or beyond. So if QA passed, they checked all the functional requirements. They probably did some regression testing, right? Before that, the code also passed the code review, so engineering-wise it should be okay, right? So the chances of the ticket coming back from the UAT is relatively small. So we can accept that and consider it done, right? If your acceptance criteria are written correctly, the chances are low. Now, DCR is just a percentage, so we have how many hours of estimated work an engineer has divided by the capacity, and you get your DCR, dev complete rate. Right? And you publish this to your engineers, they see their numbers. In my experience, 90% of performance issues are due to two things. One is not clearly set expectations. Another one is lack of feedback, right? And then we set expectations. Hey, your DCR should be 95%, right? Your rejection rate should be less than 60%, right? And then they see feedback as they go throughout the sprint, because it's like published for them, they can see, they have access, it's real time. And then we also have this bar that tells us where we are in terms of our backlog for the sprint. So it starts gray at the beginning and it moves towards being green. And this one is an interesting case. It says QAP, which means QA passed. For me, it's a bottleneck. That means QA have passed the ticket, but in this case, there was no CI/CD for UAT environment, and somebody didn't deploy it to UAT. So the job is done, QA is happy, but UAT product team cannot start doing the work, so it's a bottleneck, right? It's gonna delay the rollout of the feature, right? Just by looking at it, I know, right? How much? Intuitively, if I want, I can dig deeper and then figure out where the issues are and whatnot, but just this helps a lot. All right, and for the quality part, I count rejections. And again, this is always whatever you see right now, it's probably fifth iteration, right? And I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't completely figure out how to measure quality yet. But the furthest I went was rejection rates, code review rejection rates, QA rejection rates, UAT rejection rates. And the reason why it's important is I would rather have engineers spend more time testing their own work so that they don't waste next person's time. Because if they reject, let's say engineers spend 1 day and then code review takes 1 hour. Engineers spend 1 day, send the code review. Code review reject, gave a feedback. That's okay. One time, it's okay. A, we prevented something inferior to go further. And B, we gave feedback, so the engineer learned, hopefully, right? When it becomes bad is when you do it too much, right? So you return, they send it again, then you reject. That means this person now is gonna spend 3 hours instead of original 1, right? So we're creating capacity creep. Not capacity, sorry, scope creep, right? Not the ideal explanation of what scope creep is, but whatever. So that's what quality is for me at this point of time. Probably is going to improve later on. And that's how my dashboard looks like in a bigger format, right? This is published, people can see, and sometimes we use this part for sprint planning so that people are not overutilized or underutilized. We keep, for example, just an insight, we keep QA engineers utilization at 70% at the beginning of the sprint because we know they will be rejecting certain tasks and their utilization will grow organically, right? And then we have these numbers and we look at these numbers throughout the sprint, but especially we're gonna look at it during the sprint reviews because we've set some goals at the beginning. We said we want to hit DCR of 85% here on that sprint, particular sprint. And then I had to hide certain wordings, but we had to make sure that certain log features is in production, right? So during the sprint review, we're gonna say, all right, did we reach our sprint goals? I don't care about the numbers. Numbers are good, but I don't care about these. I care about those goals. If we achieved our goals, great, right? That means the sprint was successful. And then sometimes numbers are not they don't tell the full story, right? So sometimes I write down certain comment. DCR of this guy was this because and whatnot. Because 6 months down the line, when I need to promote the guy, I will look at his numbers, and if the numbers are not there, I will start investigating, right? So that's what it is. Now, this was based on hypotheses. Did it work? I think it did. Let me tell you why. We launched this, and then after we started with 72% DCR for the team, and then after 4 sprints, we were hitting more than 80. After 6, we were hitting more than 90. Lately, we were hitting more than 95 constantly, right? That's one. Another signal for me why it was working is more important even. Because when we launched it, after about 2 sprints, engineers would reach out to me, saying like, hey, I finished one of those tasks, but my numbers are not updated. Can you refresh the dashboard, please? To me, it tells that they're looking at it. That's the second signal. Third signal is we count the rejections, and then QA would reject engineers' work. And you know, we're engineers, we don't like when somebody tells us we did a bad job, right? And they would start arguing. No, you're rejecting it wrong. No, it doesn't work. No, but it's not written in the story, right? And then there's this back and forth, which is amazing. Because that helped me to cultivate the culture of writing proper stories, detailed stories, which is in the acceptance criteria and whatnot. And I would say, like, yeah, if it's not in the acceptance criteria, like, does it pass according to acceptance criteria? Yes. It doesn't mean you have to deploy it to production. You can still block it, but you create another story with additional acceptance criteria, right? So we elevated our culture. And then lastly, they would like, hey, yeah, QA would be like, hey, okay, I agree this is wrongful rejection. Then I would update the numbers, the metrics, and everybody's happy, right? And the last signal was, let me go back to this one. Let's imagine this number and this number. Let's imagine they're in the same discipline, right? And I would reach out to the lower guy and say like, hey, you're really gonna let this guy be above you? Right? Because we engineers, we never like when somebody's smarter than us. Somebody's better and we don't like it. We're very egocentric, right? So then they're like, no, don't worry, I'll get it done. Right? And then by the end of the sprint, their numbers would improve. So there was healthy competition. So it's a tricky thing. You gotta be careful so that it doesn't grow to be toxic competition, but healthy competition is nice. It's always nice. So that's it. I think it worked. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Thank you very much for your attention. Who's the next speaker?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Djakhongir Makhkamov, for that amazing session on how to the engineering team scale and optimize the performance. Now, I think it's time for a Q&A session, and also, do we have the last